The wind carried dust across the yard like a curse, sweeping into the lungs of those gathered in the dim, half-rotten arena where lives were bartered like sacks of grain. The boards creaked beneath. The heavy boots of men who had come to see, misery turned into profit. Their voices rose in laughter and crude bargains, their shadows long and jagged beneath the harsh lantern light. It was not cattle that stood tethered and trembling in the pens this time. It was not horses either. Tonight it was people, souls beaten down to the price of a hammer's fall, eyes vacant from knowing that no one here saw them as anything but flesh for sale. Yet even among such despair, one sound pierced through the usual chorus of fear, the sharp, raw cry of a newborn, wet and weak, barely clinging to life. The auctioneer, a man with a face cut deep by greed, lines carved not from age, but from decades of cruelty, smirked as he held the tiny bundle aloft. Blood still streaked across the wrinkled cloth where she had been hastily wrapped, evidence that she had come into this world only hours ago. Her mother lay somewhere in the shadows, motionless, her silence louder than any scream. The crowd murmured at first, confusion sweeping through the rows of bidders. A baby? What use was a baby in a place like this? But the auctioneer knew his trade well. He leaned into their hesitation, mocking the child's fragility as though it were a joke worth buying into. Fresh stock, he bellowed, his voice cracking through the stale air. Still got the fight in her, though she don't even know how to breathe proper yet. Who'll start the bid? Who wants themselves a servant who'll never remember she was free? Laughter rippled through the gathering, harsh and hollow. Some men shook their heads, spit into the dust, muttering about waste. Others shouted out obscene suggestions of what a girl like her might one day be forced into. Each word sliced at the air like a whip, yet the child's cries carried on, weak but steady. That was when the crowd parted just slightly, and a tall figure stepped closer to the stage. He was not like the others, not loud nor sneering. His hat was pulled low against the light, shadows obscuring most of his face. But the sharpness of his jaw and the stillness of his stance set him apart. Cole Harding, though few here knew his name, fewer still cared, stood with boots caked in mud from long rides. His coat worn but strong, his hands calloused from years of work that broke men in half. He was a rancher, one who preferred the company of the land to the cruelty of men. And as his eyes locked onto the bundle in the auctioneer's grip, something ancient and unmovable settled in his chest. The bidding began half-heartedly, a joke to pass the time. "A coin!" someone shouted, prompting more laughter. "2 coins just to shut her up," another called. The auctioneer egged them on, sneering, pretending the girl was a rare commodity rather than an inconvenience he wished to be rid of. But then a voice, steady and low, cut through the mockery. 10. The laughter stilled. Heads turned. No one bid 10 coins on a newborn. No one bid serious money at all. The auctioneer blinked, momentarily thrown off, before grinning as though he'd struck gold. "We got 10. Do I hear 12? Silence followed. The men looked at one another, shaking their heads, unwilling to waste real silver on a bleeding infant. When no one spoke, the hammer came down. "Sold to the fool in the dust coat." Cole stepped forward, his boots thudding against the boards, and the crowd watched with a mixture of disbelief and scorn. Some muttered that he was touched in the head. Others jeered that he must be desperate for a wife in 20 years' time. But Cole ignored them all. He reached out his arms, and when the auctioneer shoved the fragile bundle into his grasp, Cole cradled her with a gentleness that seemed impossible for such weathered hands. The baby whimpered, her tiny fists twitching against his chest. Cole looked down at her, his face unreadable to the crowd but softened in ways none of them could see. For a moment, the noise of the yard faded, swallowed by the weight of responsibility now resting in his arms. He turned without another word and began to walk, the jeers of the crowd following him like vultures circling. The night air was colder beyond the auction yard, sharp against his skin as he made his way to the hitching post where his horse waited. Cole secured the child close to his chest beneath his coat, shielding her from the wind. Each step felt heavier than the last, not from doubt, But from the realization of what he had just done, he had not bought cattle, he had not bought labor. He had bought a life, a fragile spark that others had deemed worthless. And in that moment, as the stars stretched cold and endless above the horizon, Cole made a vow to the tiny girl whose heartbeat fluttered like a bird's against his chest. "You will not be broken, not while I breathe." The dawn broke slow across the Harding ranch, painting the horizon in streaks of copper and pale gold. The land stretched wide and wild, rolling hills of grass swaying like the tides of a silent sea. It was a lonely place, hard, unyielding to the faint of heart. But it was here that Cole brought the girl after that night at the auction block. The ranch had seen its share of storms, its fences broken and rebuilt, its soil fought over and sown again. Cole himself bore the same marks, scars etched into his forearms from rope burns, lines across his shoulders from years under the sun. He had chosen this solitude, far from towns that whispered and spat. But with the baby now swaddled in an old wool blanket, the silence no longer felt empty. It was filled with her small breaths. Her fragile grip around his finger, as though clinging to him, was the only truth she knew. At first Cole wondered if he had made a mistake. What did a man who lived by cattle and fences know about raising a child? His home was a cabin with creaking boards, more suited for boots and tools than the wails of an infant. The nights were the hardest. The baby cried with a hunger he struggled to satisfy, her tiny lungs shrieking into the rafters, and Cole would pace the wooden floors with her in his arms, whispering words he did not know he had within him. He warmed milk, fed her drop by drop, changed her with clumsy hands that had never been gentle for long. He was awkward, rough-edged, but determined. Slowly she began to quiet in his arms, and in those moments of peace, her eyes fluttering closed, her chest rising against his, Cole felt something stirring within him that he had not known in years. Purpose. Word of the auction girl spread, as rumors always did. When Cole rode into town for supplies, he felt the weight of eyes upon him. Some laughed openly, mocking his decision to waste coin on a child barely out of the womb. Others whispered sharper things, how it was unnatural, how it was dangerous to keep her, how she should have been left to die like her mother. Cole ignored them, though the venom of their words burned. He was a man who carried his battles quietly, but when it came to the girl, he found his silence turning to iron resolve. He named her Lydia after his mother, who had once told him that names carry weight, that they give shape to the soul. And so Lydia grew, not as property, not as a servant, but as his daughter. The land tested them both. Winters bit hard, wind clawing through the cracks in the cabin walls, snow weighing heavy on the barn roof. Summers scorched the earth until the grass turned brittle and the well ran low. Cole worked from dawn to dusk, sweat soaking his shirt, hands blistered, while Lydia, first as a child crawling across the dusty floor, then as a girl chasing after calves in the corral, watched him with wide, unblinking eyes. He taught her not only how to survive, but how to see, to notice when the sky warned of a storm, to understand the language of horses, to respect the land even as it fought against them. "The world will always try to break you," he told her once, his voice rough but steady as they sat by the fire. "But you don't let it. You stand. You breathe. And you remember you are more than what they think." Still, trouble did not stay away. There were men who came, drawn by greed or cruelty, who spoke of claims and rights, saying the girl belonged to no one, that she could be taken as easily as she had been sold. Cole stood in their path each time, a quiet wall of defiance. He did not raise his voice, but the steel in his eyes and the weight of his rifle across his back made his meaning clear. "She's mine," he said, simple as stone. "And she'll stay that way." The men left, muttering threats. But Cole knew they would return. Darkness had a way of circling what was fragile, waiting for weakness. And so he prepared, not just with fences and locks, but by teaching Lydia strength, not of the fist, but of the spirit. As years passed, Lydia grew into her name. She carried herself with the quiet resilience of one who had been forged in hardship but shaped by love. She asked questions of her father that pierced deeper than his calloused hands could answer. Questions about where she came from, why others looked at her with disdain, why the world seemed so eager to label her less. Cole never lied to her. He told her of the night she had been sold, of the jeers and laughter, of how no one had seen her worth but him. But he also told her that those voices did not matter. "You weren't bought," he said, his hand resting firm on her shoulder. "You were rescued, and now you are free." Lydia held on to those words like a lantern in the dark. They became her shield, her compass, her promise to herself. And though the past threatened to rise again, though the world beyond the ranch whispered that she was born of blood and chains, within the walls of that small, weather-beaten cabin she knew she was more. She was chosen. She was loved. She was his.